quick note. Sorry. So this is the breakout session for Porter, Kresge, and Redwood Grove, just a little bit. I'm not going to go into too much detail about about Redwood Grove, but I will cover some details. I'm going to talk a little bit about the breakout room expectations. First of all, I know it's kind of further down, but I'm going to go to this first because this is most relevant. This presentation is being recorded. We are hoping to be able to have some version of it available later, but it is being recorded. We will edit out student questions at the end, so there'll be no identifying features at that part in the recorded section, but we are hoping to make this part available for students later. So with that in mind, we're going to be respectful to all, follow facilitator instructions. There really aren't going to be too many instructions, although I will ask that you refrain from asking questions until the very end, and I'll indicate when that part is open. We're going to keep the microphones muted until we're in that question and answer phase, and we'll allow for questions then. And then finally, we would love for you to stay for the whole presentation, but please feel free to leave to go to another breakout session if you're interested in multiple communities. You absolutely do not need to stay until the end of this one. So, all right, let's get started. And then if you have questions, you can scan the QR code once again and get those submitted. We will be sending out responses generally to the group next week, hopefully next week. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be discussing the different housing options available at Porter and Kresge primarily. Porter, just as a general overview for those who may not know too much about Porter, the theme is Eris Longa Vita Brevis, which translates as life is short but art endures, and it captures the belief that creativity is integral to all fields of study. Porter College is a diverse and inclusive community emphasizing individual and collaborative creativity. Kresge College has a theme of power and representation, and it explores the many ways we constitute ourselves as individuals in relation to communities, and focusing on representation of class, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender, and race. Okay, the first housing options that we are going to be discussing, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze, are res hall options. Sorry, I am looking at a different screen, so I think I feel like I'm looking off to the side, but maybe you can't see it. Okay, so the first option I'm going to talk about is in Porter, and students will be able to choose spaces in the Porter B building in a room block that will primarily house continuing students. For those who are currently Porter residents, you may associate Porter B with first year students, and that will continue to be so next year, but they're going to be a smaller room block that will only house continuing students, so you don't have to worry about living surrounded by first year students. In this residential options, there will be triples, doubles, and a very limited number of singles available. New this year are going to be, Kresge residence halls. These are going to be as available as part of the new construction. For students currently living at Kresge in the residence halls, those are restricted to first year students only. This year, or for this year's room selection, next year's residents, students will be able to select res hall spaces in building 4. And there will be triples, doubles, and a very limited number of singles there as well. Okay, so as far as Porter and Kresge apartment options go, the Porter apartment configurations contain, in the Porter apartments, there will be a total of 39 apartments available. Each apartment will house a total of 6 students, but the configurations will differ slightly in terms of how those students are arranged. So the highest number of apartment configurations available are 2 singles and 2 doubles. There are also 2 singles and 2 small doubles, and it's not listed here, but there are 2 singles, 1 small double, and 1 regular double, or just double. Um, Community-wide, these apartments house a maximum of 234 students. So as you're moving through the room selection process, I'm just going to pause to remind you, when you have a plan, also have a backup plan of how you may have to proceed if your room selection journey doesn't progress the way you hope it will. For those of you who are visual people, I do have some apartment layouts. So the first slide here on the my left, the screen, 6 person, 2 singles, 2 doubles. You can see that there are 29 of these available. There's a single, single, double, double, and the single and the double are on one level, and then the alternate will be either if it's on the ravine side, it'll go downstairs. If it's on the road side, it'll be upstairs from the entry level. So the other option is going to be a 6 person apartment with 2 singles, 1 double, and 1 small double. Those will always, everything with a small double will always be on the second floor. So there'll be an entry level, and the rooms, I believe, will be upstairs. But you can see there's a single, a small double, a single, and a double. And there are 7 of those style apartments. And then for the 6 person apartments, there are 2 singles and 2 small doubles. There are 3 of that apartment layout. So by far the greatest number is 2 singles, 2 doubles. For the Kresge JK apartment configurations, there are a total of 40 apartments available. And all of these apartments are exactly the same. They're 1 double and 1 small double. So each apartment houses 3 students total. So this community, the JK, can house a maximum of 120 students. So if you've ever been locked out of your space in Porter and Kresge, you've actually been in a Kresge JK apartment, because the housing office is located in a Kresge apartment. So if that is helpful referencing that. So here's a quick drawing. There's a double, small double, a small double and a single, living room and kitchen. And there are 40 of this style apartments. One thing, as I've been talking to students this week, that I've noticed is that people keep asking me, how much would it cost for a 5 person apartment? Or how much does it cost for a 3 person apartment? The housing rates are not calculated by the number of students that are housed in any given space. The rates are determined by the apartment, the room type that you're assigned to. So an apartment double in Porter is the same price as an apartment double in Kresge, the new Kresge apartments, as the same as an apartment double at Cal Stevenson, as an apartment double in Rachel Carson. It is really based on the room type and not the size of the apartment that determines the cost. Did you put those rates in the chat, Laura? Oh, there we go. I can now see the chat. Here we go. So the last availability for Kresge is going to be the Kresge, what we call the Kresge proper apartments. And these are the buildings that are currently under construction. We are opening a limited number of apartments for next year's residents. It is not going to be the complete availability of the spaces. That's going to be phased in over the next year or two. The new Kresge proper apartments offer a total of 27 apartments, and these have different configurations. This is our only community that has different sized apartments within that community. So there are going to be 5 student apartments, and that configuration is one apartment triple and one apartment double, for a total of five. And there are 24 of those. There's going to be a four-person apartment, which constitutes two apartment doubles. There are only two of these available. And then there's going to be one apartment that will house six people, and that will be two triple apartments, triple rooms. So it's like a triple in the res halls, except it's an apartment triple. And they're one of those. So the Kresge proper community will house a maximum of 134 students, which will also include the res hall spaces that I mentioned a few slides ago. For those who are visually inclined, here you go. Here's a simple rendering of the five-person apartment. As you can see, there's an apartment triple, so that would house three students in that room, an apartment double, which will house two. In Kresge, the Kresge proper layouts, it's a little different than other apartment styles in Porter and Kresge, in that the commode, to use a fancy old person term, the toilet will be in one room and the shower will be in a separate room. So it will be possible for people to use those activities at the same time. And then there'll be a kitchen living room. So that's the five-person apartment. The four-person apartment is going to be an apartment double and an apartment double for a total of four people. Again, there are two of these in olive room selection. So maybe not place your whole egg in that basket. And then the final option is going to be a six-person apartment with two apartment triples, and there's one of them. Again, just one. So those are going to be all of your apartment style options available. I'm going to touch briefly on Redwood Grove because it is a community that we oversee. Redwood Grove is not. Oh, yay, it looks like the chat is working now. Hooray for everyone. Redwood Grove will not be available as part of room selection. You cannot apply directly to Redwood Grove, and you will not see it as an option to select into on April 7th. Rather, Redwood Grove is part of our trans-inclusive housing community, which is a supplemental themed area. It's intended to support, just to reiterate, it's intended to be a supported living space for transgender, non-binary students and students exploring their gender identities along with their allies. So in order to be selected to live in the Redwood Grove apartments in trans-inclusive housing, you will apply to housing just like any other student who's interested in housing. You'll fill out your application with your preferred community. If you're a Porter student, you might want to apply to Porter, all of those things. You'll fill it out just like anybody else. There'll be a section on the application that asks about supplemental themes. In order to trigger the application for trans-inclusive or any other themed area, you must indicate a strong preference or a preference for that themed area. It is then that you'll see the questions that you'll want to answer to be considered for this area. And then you just go on filling out your housing application as you would for any other part of the process. We do love roommate groups in trans-inclusive housing. However, keep in mind that each person must be accepted individually. That means you cannot have one person in your roommate group who is accepted into trans-inclusive who can pull other people in. Everybody must be accepted individually. And then once you're all accepted, then you can form a roommate group, and we're happy to work with students once that is determined that you've all been accepted. So just a reminder to please be very thoughtful in your supplemental application responses. Do not respond with like a one-sentence answer. That will likely not get you invited. I can see that somebody posted a question. The 23 and up age restriction does not apply to trans-inclusive housing. It is, and it's also not affiliation dependent. So anybody from any college affiliation can apply to live at trans-inclusive housing. So the room types available within Redwood Grove for trans-inclusive housing are singles and small doubles. So I'm going to move on. Again, we'll have time at the end where we can ask more specific questions. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to be pre-assigned. I know Gabriella touched on this a little bit during her presentation, but we're going to go through it in a little more detail here. So, as you can see, this long timeline for the housing process, we're currently in February in the info session portion with the housing application period opening next week, February 19th through the 26th. After the after the window closes, we'll enter a phase for pre-assignment, and that's going to happen through most of March. It'll conclude before the April room selection process. So I'm going to move to the next slide where we explain who's available for pre-assignment. So before room selection begins, the housing staff, people like me, the housing coordinators, will assign residential assistants, RAs, or neighborhood assistants, as they're known at Oaks, NAs, as well as their apartment household members. So if you're an RA who's going to be living in the apartments, you will be able to select your roommate group. And then if that describes you, your series will be reaching out to kind of describe the qualifications for that in terms of household members. Another category of student eligible for pre-assignment are those who are invited to campus-wide themes. So in our community, that would be trans-inclusive housing and the Native American Indigenous theme housing, which we abbreviate as NAITH. But it also includes ABC housing, substance-free housing, and the International Living Center. So those are the people who have filled out the supplemental applications and have been invited to join those communities. Those people, if invited and accept, will not go through the room selection process because we will assign you in advance of that process. So your housing journey will be done before room selection even starts. And then the final broad category of students that gets pre-assigned are students with a documented disability related for a specific housing type. And that's done through the Disability Resource Center. And those, for the moment, must be renewed annually. So I'm going to touch just a little bit more about the DRC accommodations. If you have a disability-related housing need, you must submit an accommodation request to the Disability Resource Center in addition to applying for housing. So the two processes are separate. Applying just for housing will not guarantee your DRC accommodation will be submitted, nor will getting your DRC accommodation approved mean that you have applied for housing. Two separate processes where they meet in the middle and joyous pre-assignment happens. Okay, accommodations that qualify for pre-assignment include things like housing without steps or stairs, a specific room type, visual alarms, etc. Accommodations like an emotional support animal, kitchen access, the need for a high floor, stuff like that, those will not get you pre-assigned as part of your DRC accommodation. During pre-assignment, only students with accommodations for specific types of housing can be assigned, which means that you will be assigned, but your roommate group will not be assigned with you. If you are pre-assigned to theme housing or due to a disability accommodation, your roommate group cannot be assigned with you. You will need to decide before March 31st if you would like to proceed with room selection or with your group. If you are going to be eligible for pre-assignment through the DRC. I will be reaching out to you in advance, and you can let me know if you'd like to be um, assigned or if you'd like to proceed with your group. And that'll be a whole communication that will happen before the end of March 31st. So just keep that in mind as you're moving through this process. Okay, I would like to make a quick note about Regents and Sabate Scholars. Although this group, if you are a member of this group and have an active housing guarantee, you are not eligible for pre-assignment, but you do have a little bit of insurance when it comes to the university housing. So what does an active housing guarantee for a Regent or Sabate scholar mean? It ensures that a space in university housing, it ensures a space in university housing. However, a specific community or room type is not guaranteed. So how this will unfold for you is that you'll proceed through room selection just like everybody else. If you are successful in selecting a space, awesome, great. If you're not able to secure a space during room selection, you'll be placed on a wait list, and then you will be among the first to be offered a space as they become available. Just to keep in mind, to maintain your housing guarantee as a Regent or Sabate scholar, you must meet all of the housing application and assignment deadlines. You have to be living in housing. You have to apply on time. You must maintain continuous residence in UCSE housing during the academic year. This does not cover the summer months, so that's not a restriction. And then you must accept university housing when offered. So if you are offered a space and you decline, you've just voided your active housing guarantee. So be very thoughtful in your response when offered housing. And then finally, you must adhere to all terms and conditions of residence, meaning conduct and financial contractual responsibilities. Whew, financial contractual is hard to say together. Okay, moving on. Oops. So we're going to talk a little bit about room selection and what that process looks like. So I know this was covered before, but it can be a little tricky. You've heard a lot of information, so I'm going to go through it again really quickly. Who is eligible to participate in room selection? There's really two basic qualifications you need to meet in order to be eligible. First, you must be living in university housing during winter 2026 and spring 2026. Pretty straightforward. Then you must apply for housing during the February 19th through 26th application period. For students who are currently studying abroad or on a university approved leave of absence, if you lived in university housing prior to your departure, you will also be eligible if you apply on time. So the university has a way of tracking that and will activate your eligibility if you apply on time. Okay. Where the situation gets a little more complicated beyond basic eligibility is the assignment of login or selection times. Login, selection, sometimes people hear the word lottery time. Those are all kind of interchangeable. We've moved away from the word lottery, but the room selection time is the verbiage that I'm going to try very hard to stick with. So start times, login times are based on your current class level and the community you apply to. So once you've met the basic eligibility requirements of living on campus and applying on time, you will then be eligible to be assigned a start time, a login time. So students who apply to their affiliated college or the university town center or the village, or in some cases, Delaware, you will be assigned a start time. You are welcome to apply to a college you're not affiliated with, but you will not receive a start time or a login time. You can join a group of students who have login times, but you will not receive a login time yourself. So the way that the times are going to be assigned, current first year students, who we also refer to as rising sophomores, who entered UCSC in the fall of 2025 or winter of 2026 will receive earlier start times. All other continuing students who are eligible to participate in room selection will receive start times after first year students. The lottery aspect, if you've heard the word lottery, start times are randomly generated, and once generated, they cannot be changed. So I want to take a moment to talk about the Delaware apartments. Um, Students who apply to the Delaware apartments um, will be issued a login or start time for Delaware apartments. If you are a student who entered UCSC before the fall of 2025 and transfer students, including those who entered UCSC in fall 2025 or winter 2026, will receive start times. First year students, rising sophomores, who entered UCSC in fall 2025 or winter 2026 will not receive start times for the Delaware apartments. You can enter a group. You can rely on other people to apply to the Delaware, but you yourself will not receive a start time. It's just like applying to a college that you're not affiliated with. So again, start times are randomly generated and cannot be changed. Um, Once room selection is underway, the process is a first come, first served based on your start time. So the start times start at like, I don't remember if it's 8:15, 8:30, and then we'll continue on throughout the day. And I believe 15-minute increments, but I'm not sure. I think it'll also depend on the total number of students who apply. Once you log in, you're able to just stay logged in the whole time. It's not like you have a limited amount of time and you get kicked out. You can, once you log in, you're able to see what's available. So availability of actual housing is based on the time a student logs in, with fewer options being available as other students complete their selections. And unfortunately, spaceability is not certain. So to put it another way, the earlier you're able to log in the day, there'll be more spaces available. The later you log in during the day, students will have already made selections and available spaces will be diminishing. Okay. Oops, I just love this slide so much I copied it twice. Okay. Oh, I really love these slides. Okay. What the heck is going on? I must have gone backwards in time. Okay, hold on. So sorry. Having a technical. Okay, there we go. I went the wrong direction. Okay. Please keep in mind you will only be able to select spaces that fit. So for groups, you will only, once you log in, you will only see spaces that exactly match the size and in some cases the gender makeup of your roommate group. For example, a 6-person apartment for you and 5 housemates. And for individuals, you will likely only see single residence hall rooms or spaces in the village if that's the community you applied to. So, what are the prerequisites to forming a group? All group members must apply to the same college or community. All group members must be eligible for room selection. And each person must each person must click the box that says, include me in the roommate search results in their housing application. This is the way your group leader will be able to find you, to invite you to join their housing group. And it looks like this slide here, let's see, the big red arrow won't be there, but the box that says, yes, include me in roommate search results, that's the box you need to click. Okay, so creating a roommate group is pretty straightforward. You click on the roommate request icon, which looks like this icon up here in the upper right. In the housing portal, select the option to create a group, and then you can search by UCSC emails to find your group members that you'd like to form a group with, and then send an invite. Remember, joining a group, you're authorizing the group leader to potentially select housing for you, and you will accept their decision as final. We'll get into that a little bit more in a few slides. Okay, so for room selection, you're going to designate the person in your group with the earliest selection time as your group leader. By joining a roommate group, you're authorizing that group leader to select your housing and you're agreeing to accept that person's decision as final. That sounds really ominous, but really it just means like you're allowing them to put you in a room type. Forming a roommate group does not guarantee there will be a space available for your group size and gender makeup. I keep mentioning gender. I'm going to get into what that means in terms of room selection in a few slides. Okay, so for roommate groups, please have a plan and please, please, please have a backup plan. Plan together. Talk to your group ahead of time about what types of room each person is willing to accept and who will share a room with who. I would also say that if you are wanting to move forward in a single gendered apartment, I would also include have conversations and what it means to have a single gendered space for each each roommate, because for some people that means there will never be another person of a different gender who enters that space. For some people it means they can come during certain hours. It means a lot of different things to different people. So I would strongly encourage you to talk about that as well. Keep in mind that some space types are highly sought after but have limited availability, and these include apartments and single rooms. If your preferred space isn't available, meaning when you log in and you don't see a space that matches your group size, have a backup plan, which may include breaking your group apart. Again, a way to consider doing that would be if you have a roommate who has a login time at 8:30 and one at 9:15, you might break up your group so that some of your group stays with the 8:30 and some would go with the 9:15. So that's one way that you could consider breaking up your roommate group. The point is, talk to your group in advance because it can lead to really hard feelings if someone, gets broken up out of their group. You haven't talked about how you're going to do it, and then suddenly somebody is out. It happens every year, and we really encourage you to talk to your peeps in advance. Okay, so once the process gets started, you're able to log in. You're going to be able to see the available spaces. It's going to look something like this. Um, you'll see that there are different apartments available that match your room size. You'll be able to browse through the available rooms and search for specific spaces using filter criteria, including themes, room types, and room rate. If you click on show room info, which is right here where the big red arrow is pointing, you can see more information about an available room. This includes any students that may already be assigned to that space. If there are other students who are assigned, there will be, once you click on show room information, there'll be another option to click on the view profile. If that student has been assigned, you'll be able to see their how compatible you are because you'll be able to see their response to the lifestyle questions. So you can see their animal preferences, noise, cleanliness, sleeping styles, and guest preferences. So that can be a really useful tool if there's somebody assigned into a space that you're interested in. Once you find your perfect space, and that is, sorry, my mouse is very sensitive. Once you find your perfect space, you'll hit the place hold button. This will allow you to save that space. That means nobody else can assign into it. You'll have 5 minutes to complete your selection. There'll be a timer that shows the remaining time once you click that button that will click down the amount of time you have left. If you select an apartment space, all rooms in that apartment will be held until the selection is either complete or until the hold expires. So in order to, once you've hit the hold, you want to complete your selection. First, you must completely fill all spaces. So if you're in an apartment and you're in a group, you will see 6-person apartments. You must fill every spot of that apartment in order to be able to hold it. Same for res hall spaces. If you're looking for res hall triples and you're a group of 2, well, you won't see them, but you won't be able to save them unless you are able to meet the size requirement. You'll want to assign yourself to one of the spaces, and then you'll go through. You can see kind of behind my Labubu friend here that there's a drop-down menu. And so for Richard, you would just click one of those spaces. For Angela and Chen, or if you're more visually prone, Mario and Luigi, you'll select a bed for them. Anna and Sam, Yoshi, and Pink Labubu. So you'll assign all of the remaining available spaces. And then you'll see a screen that looks like this. It won't have the minions, but whatever. You will do a final review before confirming your selection. Once you confirm and assign, congratulations, you've secured your housing. All of the spaces are assigned. In that moment, your application status moves from application to confirmed binding contract, which means you are now financially responsible for that space. All right, so we've covered a lot of this, but there are really some important reminders to keep in mind. So I'm gonna go through these really quick. First, you're going to designate the person in your group with the earliest time as your group leader. Start times are going to be emailed on April 2nd. So you'll have 5 days to kind of rearrange your group, get that started, make plans together, discuss what room type each person is willing to accept and who's going to go in what room with who. Have backup plans. Housing options for larger groups may fill up quickly. Have a plan how you're going to separate into smaller groups, or if you're going to decide to participate as individuals, if your preferred options aren't available. And then just a reminder, forming a roommate group does not guarantee there will be a space available for your group size and gender makeup. A very frequently asked question we get is, what are my chances of getting housing during room selection? This is a very difficult question to answer because we don't know how many people will apply or what types of housing they will choose to be interested in. You can maximize your chances by applying during the application period. If you're forming a roommate group, make sure that your roommate group all applies to the same community and that they're all eligible to apply, because people who aren't eligible for room selection can apply to housing. They just can't participate in room selection. So make sure that you have that conversation that your friend is eligible to apply, although you won't be able to find them during the formation of the group. So, and then also have backup plans for your roommate group. There are some meet a roommate events that are happening on campus over the next week. Porter, Kresge, Redwood Grove had theirs yesterday. I do want to just highlight that the Delaware Apartments will be hosting a Meet a Roomie event on February 17th at 5 p.m. at the Porter Hitchcock Lounge. Okay, so how does gender affect room assignments? A student's gender designation in the My UCSC portal plays a role in determining their room and roommate assignment. In most cases, students are assigned roommates of the same gender. And in that case, we literally mean people sharing a room. You can have a mixed gender apartment, but during room selection, you will not be able to assign people of different genders into the same room within an apartment. Same for res hall spaces. You won't be able to select a res hall space if your genders don't all match in my UCSE. Um, I'm not going to go through what qualifies or how a female or male or non-binary are identified, except to say that in my UCSE, a female will show up as an F, a male will show up as M, non-binary shows up at X, and then there is the rare case of unspecified. Either the student declines to state, or somehow you're able to skip the gender identification during the application process, which does happen. And then you may end up getting housed with a student who doesn't match your gender because it's unspecified. And if that happens to you, it'll show up as non-binary X. So please be mindful when you're filling out your application that you either intentionally decline to state or that you select one of these other genders. Okay, students can view and update their gender information through My UCSC, and it can take up to 24 hours for any changes to come to be updated. So please don't change your gender 15 hours before room selection. Do it 2 days before. During room selection, if you have a hold on a space and have difficulty assigning or completing your selection because of a gender designation issue, you can contact your housing coordinator, which would be me, for Porter and Kresge. We're also going to have a Zoom link specifically for this. So once you have a space held, you can hop on that Zoom link and we can verify that you have it held, and then we can assign students into with different genders into the same rooms. Alternatively, you can put people in the incorrect room type for the purposes of room selection, secure the space, and then come talk to us after room selection is over, and we can reassign you into the proper room types once the space is held. For more information about gender, visit housing at ucsc.edu// some kind of /gender. Okay, so we've talked about room selection. Now we're going to talk about the wait list. Really, the wait list starts right after room selection. It's 1 day. You'll be asked to opt in to the initial wait list. So that's going to happen very soon after room selection happens. You'll need to opt in every month after that to have your interest in being on the wait list re-verified. I want to point out that right after room selection, all of the available housing is assigned to other students. So the waitlist movement will be dependent on student cancellations. So it's really, really hard for us to predict when you'll be removed or moved forward from the waitlist because somebody else has to cancel their housing. I will say I wouldn't get too panicky if you don't see a lot of movement in May or June because people are still pretty solid in their plans at that point. We tend to see a lot of movement in the wait list in late June, July, and August. Although I will keep assigning from the wait list if there are students there in September and October. So yeah. Some other thoughts about waitlist. Some students will select their housing during room selection. Many others are assigned housing by a housing coordinator. Again, you'll be prompted to re-verify, and then we work through this spring, summer, and fall to accommodate as many students as are interested in university housing as possible. And believe me, I work really hard to get as many students off the wait list as I can. I check for cancellations multiple times a day. If possible, I check to see if there are spaces to keep some version of a roommate group together. Like I work really hard to get people into housing that they want from the wait list. It's not always easy or possible to get you with your friends, but I do try. Okay, woo! We've reached the end of my prepared slides. We have about 35 minutes left. Oh, I guess I have these 3 things to mention. So today's the last info session. So kind of an irrelevant thing. Meet-a-Roomie events are happening next week. That slide that's showing the locations and times is available on the continuing student housing website. The application period, again, February 19th through the 26th. And then pre-assignment, March 19th through the 31st. And then room selection, April 7th. Woohoo! Okay, I think now we've truly ended. If you have questions that you want to submit via QR code, here's the code to do it. Otherwise, I'm going to open up, I can't see how many